Good afternoon. I'm sorry.
I'm so used to projecting. Good afternoon, and welcome to our budget hearing. And this is a budget hearing, meaning that we will present, but we're here to listen to you. We are not taking any votes in this meeting. This is a hearing only. So first, we will have a presentation from Finance.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're going to have our second public hearing on the budget for the next school year, 2024-25. Our objectives and purpose of this budget are to outline the revenue and expenditures, to look at our budget priorities and rationale related to general funds and fund balance, to solicit feedback for budget decision-making, to promote transparency in the budget process, and to gain community input on the budget process and priorities. Influencing factors. Some of the items that are influencing the factors in our budget include our strategic plan, our board, parent, and community partners, the local and state revenues, our school children's enrollment, our unfunded state mandates, such as our health insurance and the increase by the governor of $2,500 for the certified staff. Last week, on May 8th, we had our first public hearing. Tonight is our second. We will also have a millage rate hearing, public hearing on June 12th, and we will have a second and third hearing on June 20th, one in the morning and one in the evening. This graph right here shows our general fund projected revenues, the increase in revenues. Our total projected revenues for next fiscal year are $614.6 million, and that is an increase of $48.8 million as compared to this year to next year. This is made up of our local revenues of $38.3 million, which is mainly our local tax digest, our property taxes. It is made up of state revenues, $12 million increase in that, which is made up of our state QBE mainly. And then our federal revenue, we are projecting a little bit of a decrease in that, $1.9 million. That is based on our federal grant, our E-rate money, and our federal impact aid. And then we are also expecting a decrease in our other financing sources, which is our sale of equipment, and decrease. We expect a decrease in the compensation for lost or damaged replacement items, for lost or damaged replacement items. This graph right here shows our expenditure increase, which is about $34 million for next year. And some of the big ticket items on here, we expect to reduce the budget by $7.8 million based on we will not be doing a retention supplement next year. We do have like a bus driver increase in here of $819,000. We also have 24 counselors that are added, which is going to cost us about $2.6 million. The American Recovery Act money is programs. It is going away on September 30th, 2024. So that is, that's something we are adjusting for. So we are going to have to cover those staff members that are in there. The 25 that are being covered from that grant from the federal government right now that will have to be put back in the general fund. Part of our GNETs, we did at first think we were not going to get any GNETs money, but we did get some. We were very thankful for that. But we still have to cover about 8 people that we're short because it decreased. Our GNETs almost went down about $1 million from this year to next year. So we are going to have to cover about 8 people out of GNETs. Our use of fund balance at this time is $7.4 million. And some of the items at the bottom, staff increase of COLA, 5.5% for staff members is $14.9 million, and our years of STEP service increase is $3.5 million, and our state health insurance is going up $10.4 million. Three paths our district can take with our budget this new school year coming up. We can maintain and enhance our investment initiatives, programs that were implemented this year, and execute them as a priority in fiscal year 25 next year. Another path we can, if we decide to take, is to reduce and reallocate expenditures. Or our third choice in our another path we can take is to increase revenue by increasing the millage rate, grant funding, or hope that our enrollment goes up. Some of our strategic priorities are shown on this graph or on this chart right here. The main one that we are looking at here that involves the finance division that I'm part of is our stewardship and maintaining an effective budget process that ensures an equitable allocation of resources to provide high-quality educational services. Our preliminary budget, all funds, these are all of our funds. Fund 100 is, of course, our largest fund, is general operating fund. We are projecting $614.6 million in revenue, and our expenditures are $622 million projected for next year. Debt service, $250,000 in revenues and expenditures. Our capital projects is $131 million in revenues and expenditures. Some of the various items on here, one of the big ones is Title I. We are projecting $28.1 million in revenues and expenditures. CARES Act, which is going away on September 30th. 2024 is Fund 448, and we are projecting that we will start the year at $18.49 million, and that's for our revenues and expenditures. And Lighthouse, MSAP, $4.1 million. Some of the others on here that are big, special revenue funds, Fund 560, our pre-K lottery, we are projecting revenues of $10.7 million and expenditures of $10.7 million for next year. Food service is also another very large one at $33.2 million in revenues and expenditures, Fund 600. Our internal service funds, which is our workers' comp, Fund 690, unemployment compensation 691, and an employee dental plan 692. Revenues and expenditures for workers' comp, $2.1 million. Unemployment, $242,000. And our employee dental plan, revenue zero, expenditures $1.2 million. That is carried over from a prior year. Our total revenue is projected at $874.1 million. Our expenditures, $882.8 million. On this graph right here, it is our total fund, our total all funds, that's general fund and all of these other funds, totals $882.8 million. And the graph shows where these funds, what percentage of each of the funds make up our areas of our budget. General fund is, of course, our largest at 71% at $622 million. Our second largest fund is the capital projects at $131 million. That's 15%. Our special revenue funds, which make up 14% at $125.8 million. Our internal service funds are a little less than 1%. $3.5 million, and debt service close to 0%, a little above 0%, $250,000. Thank you.
Okay, we will now hear from the public. First, we have, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes, please. The first person to speak is Mr. David Mullinex. Yes, please.
I have 4 messages, and I'll try to get them across in 3 minutes. The first message I have is that you guys need to answer your mail. Dr. Watts, my first letter to you was written October 9th, 2023. There have been quite a few since then. I've never had a single acknowledgement or an answer. 3 pieces of correspondence to you, Mr. Moss, including a certified letter on April 15th. No acknowledgement, no response. I've asked you very specific questions, and I've received no reply whatsoever to any of my questions. Now, I came here, I'm almost 72 years old, I may be the oldest person in the room. My wife and I came here 17 years ago because we liked Savannah. We came here on a short vacation, we liked it, and we decided to move here. And we've had a pretty good time here. And we know when we came here, of course, we came from an overseas situation where we knew we would pay school taxes. And we sort of look at ourselves as investing in the community. We're sort of passive investors, and we rely on people like you to decide how those investments are done. Now, imagine over the years, of course, we've seen a number of problems come up. And a lot of those problems relate to the cost of education. Of course, everyone experiences inflation. And also the general reputation of the schools. You all know, I don't know, Dr. Watts, if you have the current testing scores in for this year yet. Do you? No, I didn't think you would have. It's a little bit early for them. But the 2024 scores all indicated sub 30% in math and literacy. You all know that. And I don't know how you do a budget process that's a comprehensive budget process without evaluating the success of what you did this year. And you need the data. So one of the suggestions I'm going to make to you is that you think long and hard about trying to go to a budget adoption and a millage rate until you have a chance to get the data to see how it bears out with your hopes and expectations against the costs. It's really quite important to do that. Next message I want to give you is that there's really only one output that matters to me as a taxpayer in the schools, and that is, are the kids achieving the right educational goals? Are the boys and girls who come into your school, who grow up to be young men and young women, getting the education that they need? So you'll forgive me, but I'm not going to go through all of your strategic mapping exercise. I used to teach that. I don't teach it anymore to organizations like yours because your organization has too many different elements. There are other ways we can approach this. You want my ideas, you can get in touch with me, and I'll be glad to share them with you. So, third thing I would say is that there are really only 2 inputs to this process. There's money, which is what this budget hearing is about, and I thank Ms. Cooley for her presentation. I read it online. It added a lot to my understanding. There's that money that goes into the system, and there's parental involvement. I don't know what's going on with parental involvement in the schools, but I think it needs to be strengthened, it needs to be formalized, and it needs to be valorized. You need to know what is the value in dollars of this particular type of involvement by parents or adult custodians or whoever the responsible individual is for the education of children. I can give you ideas about that too, if you want them, and you can get in touch with me, so I don't take up your time on doing that now.
Thank you.
Okay,
Sir,
now I'm not quite done.
Sir, you're over your 3 minutes.
Well, I asked when I came here, sir, Mr. Ross, if you'd answer some of my letters, I might not need so much time, but I only have one more point to make. And that is that you need to look more creatively and more differently at the way you finance the schools. I'm not going to tell you how many teachers to hire, what things they need to be in. That's up to you guys. But you need to be more creative in your financing. The taxpayer base cannot sustain continual increases in the the cost of the schools. Right now.
Sir,
let me finish. Let me have one
you're over your
sentence.
3 minutes.
Let me have one sentence. Right now, the third
You're over your
largest-
3 minutes. You're almost at 5 minutes.
You give me 30 seconds, I'll be done. Give me my time to say what I need to say. And I've been a taxpayer for 17 years. All I'm saying is the third largest bill that I pay each month is the money I pay to finance the schools and to help other people educate their children. I have no children in the school. I think I deserve some responsibility from this board in terms of real creativity, real effort to link what you're spending to the effectiveness of what you're doing on the ground. Now I'm done.
Thank you very much.
And you can get in touch with me if you want.
You can leave, and if you'd like to leave your information with him, we will read it. Thank you.
This is not for you. This is just my talking point.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. All right. Next, Ms. Luisa Nolasco.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I come here today to speak on behalf of Migrant Equity Southeast. My purpose in speaking at this budget focus meeting is to shine a light on the ESOL department budget allocation and its needs. I would like to first acknowledge the efforts made by the board to expand the ESOL department. I recently attended an ESOL-focused community meeting and was elated to learn that the proposed investment for fiscal year 25, which will be about $2.8 million. This is a wonderful step towards a more equitable school environment in our home county, and I thank you all for that. Nevertheless, it is important to address the urgent needs in the community. Successful expansion depends on a careful and methodical implementation of systems that will benefit the ESOL student community in the end. First, the need for translation and interpretation, especially when it comes to availability. The system needs to hire more bilingual liaisons for the number of schools that require this service in the county. Enrollment assistance. We need culturally competent bilingual staff to assist the families with enrollment and in a timely manner. Counseling and social workers, and I want to make sure of this one because it is important to remember that many of the children that arrive in this country are escaping from traumatic situations. Then they have to deal with the fact that the trauma of not being able to communicate with most of the adults in their school environment. So it is dire that they need to have access to counselors and social workers that first speak their language and second understand the situation that they are in. Cultural sensitivity. This is a particular issue in the administrative level. Members of the school staff must be able to respond and prevent to instances of discrimination and racism in the school environment. Lastly, but not least, multicultural community engagement. The more the ESOL community parents are able to engage and participate in the schools, the more the system will be able to identify the areas of improvement. We thank you again for the recent community meeting held by the system, and we hope that this is the first of many opportunities for community engagement. I would like to remind the board that MESE, Migrant Equity Southeast, is always willing to collaborate with SCCPSS to achieve the mutual goals we have for our multicultural parents and, most importantly, the children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mrs. Crystal DeVos Mahaney.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Crystal DeVos Mahaney. I'm a 21-year-plus military spouse. We came here to Savannah just over 2 years ago. We're thrilled to be here. We absolutely love this city. We have 2 boys, 10 and 12. Before we came here, I did my research and made every effort to inform the district of who I was coming with. My son's needs, they both received IEPs. They both came with IEPs. My son was placed at a wonderful school for his 5th grade year. This was my first experience with a PACE classroom, and I was thrilled. For the first time in years, he genuinely wanted to go to school. He was happy to go to school. We had a wonderful school team, wonderful teachers, a great staff, and a very helpful school administration. However, at the beginning of the 2022-2023 school year, I requested my son to be reevaluated. As a military family, we move a lot. Georgia is our 4th state, and this is our 5th school district. When I asked about, I signed the consent and I waited patiently, and I waited for months. When I asked about the reevaluations, only then was I told about a second consent form that needed to be signed. I signed it immediately, sent it back within minutes. Even with this second consent in hand, the school psychologist did not evaluate him. When I requested an IEP meeting and asked her to join the meeting to discuss the plan to evaluate him, she declined the meeting. When I asked for someone, anyone, to attend the meeting to talk about the district's plan to evaluate my son, I was told nobody would attend the meeting. The program manager stated that. When I asked the program manager, what is the district's plan to evaluate my son, she then stated the district had no plan to evaluate him for the remainder of this school year. The school psychologist and the program manager failed and refused to evaluate my son for an entire school year. And as military families, we are disproportionately affected by this long wait for evaluations. There's so much learning that happens in a year. For kids with disabilities, it all starts with evaluations. Evaluations drive the development of an IEP. Evaluative data is an integral part of the IEP process. It drives the educational goals and the supports. Without proper evaluations, the school team only has a previous state's IEP, teacher observation, and parent input to create a learning plan. Without evaluations, the IEP team is handicapped, if you will, to create an appropriate educational plan for each child. When he transitioned to middle school, I, once again, reinstated my request to reevaluate. The only reason the district responded to my request this time was because I involved the Georgia Military Department of Education representative. Only then the district come to the meeting and evaluate my son. That occurred in the fall of 2023, more than 1 calendar year from my initial request for a reevaluation. And only then did my son receive a FAPE. The U.S. Department of Education issued a memo on November 10th of 2022. It's on page 4 of the document that I hope you have. It states, we, the U.S. Department of Education, strongly encourages school districts to complete their evaluations of highly mobile children, which include military children, with expedited timeframes. For example, within 30 days to the extent possible, consistent with each highly mobile child's individual needs whenever possible. And let's be clear, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act states reevaluations must be done within a reasonable time frame. The Georgia Department of Education policy mirrors this language. I've heard many district employees state the district has 3 years to reevaluate. That is categorically false. The 3-year time frame is when the district must reevaluate. When a parent requests the district to evaluate, the IDEA and the Georgia state policy states the district must reevaluate within a reasonable amount of time. I don't personally think a year is reasonable. I want to state this very clearly. This is not the school's problem. This is a systemic district problem. In the military, we call it a single source of failure. When one person, or in this case 2, have the power to deny children a FAPE. And there are scores of families who have been denied evaluations or whose requests have been significantly delayed. So which is a more cost-effective measure for this district, for this board? A state complaint or due process? Because every other avenue is being ignored. Another option is to do the right thing and evaluate the kids. Military families are part of this community. I don't want to be up here. I don't want to be saying this. But if I don't, I fear nothing will change. I fear that you won't know, and I fear that change won't be implemented. Highly mobile kids' needs must be included in the conversations and considered in all district plans moving forward. Georgia has the 5th largest military population in the country. I care the most about military kids, and I especially care about military kids who need special education to have the best chance at learning. But we continuously get left behind, and you wait till we leave. Military families move here and want what everybody wants, for their kids to receive a FAPE. The district's failure to evaluate denies them that right, and I implore you to look at this issue and address it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Will you please leave that with us? Your statement. Will you leave your statement with us? Yes. Oh, and will you please? Okay. You and Dr. Watts will meet. Okay. All right. All right. Are there any other people? No one else has signed up to speak. Anyone else like to speak? There being none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Thank you very much.
Tamika, did you get that? I said.